Hello, my name is Olwen. I was born and brought up in Liverpool. Happy, secure family. One of five, three elder siblings, an 8-year gap, and then myself and my younger sister. Went to church and Sunday school from a very early age. Loved, as a small child, loved Jesus more than I love fairy stories, and I love fairy stories. Those that are Beatles fans would know the church that I went to at St Peter's, Walton, because that's where John Lennon met Paul McCartney. And I can remember the year after my dad died, my grown-up niece coming, and it was a snowy, dark evening, and she said, "It's so good to come here when there isn't a Beatles tour." And I looked at her perplexed, because I didn't know that Eleanor Rigby shares the same graveyard as my parents. So there we are, that's my claim to fame. When I was 13 or 14, in the middle of the night, I gave my life to Christ in the middle of the night, because I'm a main motivation because I didn't want to go to hell. I'm kind of, the Christians that were giving those sorts of messages were people that I didn't necessarily want to be like. So that thing when somebody says I saw something in them and I wanted to be like them, I'm thinking, that didn't quite work for me. I kind of got confirmed when I was 17, because actually it's a bit odd, you're supposed to do it when you're about 15, so I was following convention. Went to university, did a professional training, and then got my first job in Dunstable and began living in Luton in 1983. By 1984 I had a Christian flatmate who invited me to a series of events that were being run by a team from Holy Trinity Brompton. I can remember at the lunchtime having been to a Sunday morning service saying, well, he's not going to get me. But that evening, Sandy Miller, who was the vicar at Holy Trinity Brompton, gave every single excuse I had for not giving my life to Christ, and so I knew I just had to do it. And I remember the next day doing my ironing, thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? My life's never going to be the same again. When I've often sort of just held back from testimonies, because people often say, well, this traumatic thing happened to me, or I had this great need and God came into it. And I remember hearing one about a year ago, and I just remember saying, well, nothing like that's ever happened to me, God. And then this small, quiet voice said to me, well, your mum died very suddenly on a Friday evening when she was cooking your tea and you were only 15. And that made me question, why would I not think such a traumatic thing wouldn't be something that God would intervene with and come and rescue me from? And I think it's because actually I knew that he, in the midst of that trauma, he was always there. I can remember my mum died on the Friday, and then all the older ones came back, and I can remember us being in the kitchen and my older sister saying, well, Mum's in a better place now, she's with God. And I can remember looking at her thinking, you don't know that's sentiment speaking. But then by the time the funeral came, and I remember looking back at my aunt as we were leaving the church, and she was in floods of tears, and I just looked at her and wondered, why are you crying? My mum is in the arms of Jesus. And I just knew that for sure, and there was a joy and a peace there. And I knew it wasn't sentiment, because as a teenager, when you lose a parent and you're going to a funeral, it's not just all the mourning and all the loss you've got, but there's all that embarrassment. You know, still a teenage anxiety about not wanting to be on show. That all of that's mixed in there, but I had this deep peace and joy. So my Christian life I have found, or my ministry, I think, has been, my training ground for my ministry has been my world of work. So I've not been to a Bible college, but all the breakthroughs that have happened in work, I've then seen those skills and similar breakthroughs happen in church. It's almost like work was used to help shape my ministry in St Hugh's, and it's not always been easy. It's had its ups and its joys and its downs. One word of knowledge that was given me years ago was that I would be like a weevil, that if I get knocked down, I get bounced back up again. And another word was that a bit like that I was like a dredger that cuts through ice. And I've probably got stories that would tell you those things. But now I'm retired. I've retired at the end of March. So it'll be interesting to see what God does. I know that through lockdown I've realised that actually God had put lots of things that I'd been neglecting about myself. He'd actually put things in place so that actually in lockdown I've been secure, though I've been on my own for almost a year. Those of you who live in your own know what that's like. But God has actually provided for me. And I think one of the greatest things he's done is that he has given me this resilience, that resilience that helped me as a teenager cope with the death of a parent so young has just led me and enabled me to go through all the trials that come when you take the narrow path. So I'm just so pleased, because the other thing that he's given me as well as resilience is joy. And I am pleased that I have Jesus in my life.